So you have Autolab installed and configured on your system, you've pulled down some operating systems and deployed them into an Active Directory environment, and you have a handful of servers and an AD domain ready to go, and you're just on the edge of starting to install certificate services, but you need to be able to manage the servers that you have in Autolab. How do you quickly update them, snapshot them, shut them down, start them up? Well, let's talk shop and go over that today. Hi everybody, I'm Brian Roma, your shopkeeper here at Minding the Key Store, the YouTube channel that covers all things PKI, and this is part 3 in a series of tutorials that teach you how to leverage Autolab, which is a repository of PowerShell scripts and commands that provision Hyper-V so that you can download trial software from Microsoft and build out an Active Directory domain and different server roles very quickly and very easily. As long as you're here, and we'd love to have you on board, I would love to hear in the comments below what it is that you're hoping to test with your ADCS build out. So you've got Autolab. We're going to talk about managing Autolab. Very soon we're going to go over a very basic certificate services install. So once you have it, what is it that you hope to test? Are you testing templates? Are you testing administrative rights and who can do what on a given certificate authority? Are you testing auto enrollment scenarios? Are you testing other additional roles like NDES? SCEP certificates? Are you looking at a policy CA and you want to see how that plays? What is it that you're going to use this lab for? What is it that you would like to test? I'd love to hear in the comment below. Okay, so I have my virtual machine set up just off camera here, and I'm going to share my desktop in just a second. And today we're going to dig right in. Let me start sharing. Okay. So if you want to know the step-by-step process that we went through in order to get to this place, to deploy these servers, to provision Hyper-V, to download the software, to set up Active Directory, watch the other 2 videos that are in this series. They go through step-by-step how to set up a Windows 10 system. It can't be Windows 10 Home. It's got to be Pro, Education, or Enterprise editions that will support Hyper-V. But if you have one of those OSs, you can run the steps that we cover in those previous 2 videos. To get you to this point. So I have an elevated command prompt in one of the configuration directories. And this is the configuration directory for the Minding the Key Store Lab 19. This is what we used last time we spoke. And we're going to go over some commands. This is going to be some just general administration global settings that you can take. I'm going to pull this down. I've got my notes. I've got my, I'm making sure that I'm in the shot. Just a little bit of everything here. So, pardon me, just one second. Okay, so I've got Hyper-V, it's here. All of my guests, however, for my Active Directory environment are powered off. So I would like to start my lab up. So with an elevated command prompt, I can start my entire lab up by running the command run-lab. And Autolab and Lability working together know the roles that you have installed, and so by running it this way, it knows it's going to run the power-up command, and if you notice here, it's kicking off the initialization, the power-up of the domain controller first, and there's a delay, so it gives the Active Directory services the opportunity to come up, the database to come online, network connections give it, the opportunity to initialize so that other systems can talk to it. So you can see it's powered on, CPU is being consumed. This command is continuing through that countdown. When it finishes, it's going to go to the next role. I believe it goes to the CA next, and then just member boxes from there. But let's double check here. So, okay, it kicks everything else off afterwards in tandem. It just goes in order. So as soon as the domain controller is finished, it initializes the other servers, and boom, 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 everything is done. And then it comes back up and says, here's some other commands that you can run. And we've covered some of these. Enable Internet's one of them. We talked about Validate Lab. Let's say you just finished a build and you've powered and you stepped away and you came back and you would like to make sure everything is patched. You can do update-lab. And this is going to go through the Windows Update process. Now this could take some time. And I may cut the footage here so you're not sitting watching paint dry. So you can see the CPU utilization is escalating here, scanning for updates, and it's going to work its way through each of the server roles. Found 4 updates for the DC, and it's going to work its way through the other roles. And now it's starting the installation process. Now keep in mind, if you have a large environment, if you have a big deployment in your Hyper-V hypervisor, you might need to increase the resources that you have for your virtualization guests. So if you're running really lean, Autolab tends to run everything at 2 gig of RAM per guest, and if you have everything trying to update at the same time, or you're trying to get through everything quickly, you might need to go through manually and increase the amount of RAM that a given guest has, just so it goes through the patching process more quickly. Also, keep in mind that if you've got a smaller system that you're doing updating, you're doing these management pieces on, if it's a home laptop with Windows 10 Pro as an example, it might you might run out of resources pretty quickly because it's trying to patch 3 or 5 or 7 servers all at the same time, and utilization starts to go way up. So keep that in mind. If you have a really beefy system and you have plenty of resources to spare, these global management steps will work great for you. If not, you might need to incrementally raise or lower resources that are available in order to get through the patching process. So you've gone through the update process, you've run that update-lab command, and it's churned through all of the guests that you have in Hyper-V, and you're ready to go. You've done some manual configuration steps. Maybe you had something, one-off customization that you have to a given server, or maybe you have some files that you needed to stage on these servers before you could use it for testing, and you want to keep this as a checkpoint. You'd love to come back to this build point, for further testing. Well, you can tell Autolab to run a snapshot command for the entire lab. And the way that you do that is snapshot. Oop, it would help if I clicked in here. Snapshot -lab. And it's going to think for just a minute here. And then it's going to go through every single guest in Hyper-V and create snapshots for us to roll back to. And there we go. Configure your node, processing. And you can see each of the nodes. Now you might be saying, Brian, how do I update Autolab? Do I have to go back out to GitHub and re-download the next version that's going to be out that covers server 2022? How do I maintain Autolab as an infrastructure, as a platform itself? And there is also a command that you can run in Autolab itself, which is update-module space PS Autolab -force. And if you hit that, it will check the version of Autolab that you've got. It's checking lability, seeing if there's anything that needs to be updated. So I was working on a deployment, so it says, hey, you're in the middle of a deployment, so you may want to come back later. If you are not, I actually have something that's going to be in the next segment here. If you're not actually actively running a deployment, it should run through those pieces and say, no updates needed or update complete. Now, to my point on deployments and additional work, so I wanted to show you a couple of things. I wanted to show you that using the different configuration folders and templates and modifying them and pushing them to HyperLab, one lab environment and one lab configuration does not impact the others. So you can deploy multiple labs if you've got the hardware resources to do it, and they can work completely independent of each other. So I deployed a single server 2012 R2 server And I didn't do any customization on it at all. I just deployed it, and I'm gonna scroll down here. If you look, there's a server 12. This is the Autolab default naming convention. It's deployed it. Now I haven't started the lab. I haven't enabled internet on it. I didn't do any of the additional steps. I didn't do update-lab or anything else in that environment. But what I did was I browsed out to that particular folder. So D Autolab configurations, single server 2000 R2 GUI, and then I ran setup-lab, just like we talked about in the Minding the Key Store demo that we did 2 episodes ago. And it downloaded a server 2012 R2 ISO trial software from Microsoft and pulled it down, configured it to Autolab specifications in the configuration file like we covered a couple of episodes ago, and away we go. But what I wanted to show you was, one, you can deploy multiple labs and they don't impact each other. So that just got added to my existing Lab 19 Minding the Key Store demo that we've been looking at right along. That's one point. The other part of it is, if you have something that you want to get rid of, here's a command, a global command that you could run to get rid of an entire lab at once. Now I'm going to show you this on the Server 2012 deployment, because I've been working with this Lab 19 build out for this series, and I don't want to delete all of it until we're done and we've moved on to something else. Now, if I ran this in my Minding the Key Store Lab 19 configuration folder, if I run this command I'm going to show you, it will get rid of all of the machines, not just one, it'll do all of them. But let's say that you have a lab and you want to get rid of it. You want to reclaim the drive space. You want to get rid of the software. Well, not the software. Pardon me, not the software. The ISOs would stay, but the definition files, all of those things would go away. If you do wipe-lab and then execute, and it's going to say press enter to continue. And then it's going to ask you to confirm, and it'll say, are you sure that you want to do this? Now, if I ran this against my Lab 19 environment, it would ask, and it's even telling you, you're running remove lab against this target, and it will confirm. If you have a lab with multiple servers, it will ask you, it will double check. So if I did it in Lab 19, it would say, do you really want to get rid of DC01? Do you really want to get rid of CDP01? Do you really want to get rid of CA01? And so on and so on. And you would have to confirm and say yes to each of those, which is a good thing, I think. So if you say yes, it's processing, and it did its thing. And now if we look in Hyper-V, that server 2012 guest is gone, and it did not impact any of my Lab 19 machines. It didn't change the configuration. It didn't. So if you wanted to experiment or spin up another OS quickly and then get rid of it quickly, you could just as easily do those things, in the configuration folder, in another configuration folder in Hyperlab, in Autolab. So there you have it. There are some common commands that you can use in your Autolab environment to manage multiple servers at one time, whether that's starting up a whole bunch of servers, snapshotting a bunch of servers, running updates. Now, there's a manual that comes with the Autolab download. It's a comprehensive PDF that you can go through. I highly recommend that you go through that. I just scratched the surface here. This is to give you a taste of the power that Autolab has with it. You can run Windows updates as background tasks. There's incremental targeted commands that you can run for given guests in an Autolab configuration instance. So I highly recommend that you dig in there. This is by no means comprehensive. This is just supposed to be a taste, just a sampling to let you know what you could leverage if you needed to quickly and easily and for free get a lab going and test Active Directory certificate services. If you found this particular episode entertaining, if you found it helpful, if you thought this series was powerful and it met a need for you, we would love it if you would do all of the YouTube things, if you would subscribe to the channel, if you would like this particular episode, and then hit the bell notification to let you know when new content comes out, whether that's our new tutorials like this series or a prior recording from our Vault series. And later on in the year, we're going to be going live and having events with, people of interest, people that know and are working deeply in the PKI and or Active Directory certificate services industry. If you have any feedback or thoughts about this episode, please let us know, and we will talk to you soon.